The courtroom smells like old wood and desperation. A faint whiff of stale coffee lingering in the air as the ceiling fan hums above, slicing through the tense silence. My hands grip the edge of the wooden chair, nails digging into the grain. As Karen Miller stands at the plaintiff's table, her manicured fingers clutching a stack of papers like they're her lifeline. Her voice, sharp as a razor, cuts through the room. "That house," she says, pointing a trembling finger at me, "is an eyesore. It's ruining my view, my peace, my everything." The judge, a tired-looking man with gray streaks in his hair, sighs deeply, his pen hovering over a notepad. I can feel the weight of her accusation, like a storm cloud pressing down on my chest. All I did was buy a house outside her precious HOA. And now, here we are. 6 months ago, I was just a guy trying to start over. My name's Ethan Cole, 32, newly divorced, and looking for a fresh start after my ex-wife took the condo and half my savings. I found it in a fixer-upper on Maple Lane, a quiet street just beyond the manicured lawns of Willow Grove, Karen's pristine HOA community. The house wasn't much peeling paint, a sagging porch, windows that rattled when the wind blew, but it was mine. I could still smell the fresh dirt from the yard when I signed the papers, hear the creak of the floorboards as I walked through my new home for the first time. It felt like freedom, until Karen showed up. She knocked on my door that first week, her lips pursed so tight they looked like they might crack. "You need to fix this place," she snapped, gesturing at my overgrown lawn like it was a personal insult. Her perfume was overpowering, like roses dipped in bleach, and her eyes scanned my property with the precision of a hawk. "It's dragging down the neighborhood's value." I laughed it off, thinking she was just a nosy neighbor with too much time on her hands. "Ma'am, I'm not in your HOA," I said, keeping my tone polite. "I'll fix it up when I can." Her face went red, like a kettle about to scream, and she stormed off, her heels clicking on the pavement like gunshots. I didn't think much of it until the letters started arriving. First, it was a friendly note from the Willow Grove HOA, reminding me to maintain community standards. Then came the certified mail, accusing me of violating some obscure zoning regulation I'd never heard of. By the third letter, Karen had hired a lawyer, claiming my unsightly house was ruining her scenic view of the rolling hills behind my property. A scenic view she could only see from her second-floor balcony, mind you, and only if she leaned out far enough to risk falling. I sat at my kitchen table, the letters spread out like a bad hand of poker, the refrigerator humming in the background, and I felt my stomach twist. This wasn't just a neighborly dispute. This was war. I tried to keep my head down. I mowed the lawn, painted the porch, even planted a few flowers to appease her. But every time I stepped outside, I could feel her eyes on me, watching from her pristine white house across the street. I'd catch her silhouette in the window, her phone pressed to her ear, probably complaining to her HOA cronies. The air started to feel heavy, like I was breathing through a straw. My neighbor, Mr. Rodriguez, a quiet retiree with a knack for woodworking, warned me over a beer one evening. "She's got money and spite," he said, his voice low, the cicadas buzzing in the dusk. "She once sued a guy for parking his RV on his own driveway. He moved away after that." I laughed, but it was hollow, like the sound of an empty can rolling across the pavement. Then came the lawsuit. Karen wasn't just after an apology or a quick fix. She wanted my house torn down, demolished, gone, because, in her words, it obstructed her quality of life. I stood in my living room, the summons crumpled in my fist, the faint smell of fresh paint still clinging to the walls. I'd poured every penny I had into this place, every late night sanding floors, every weekend hauling debris to the dump. And now this woman, this stranger, wanted to take it all away because my roofline didn't match her aesthetic. I wanted to scream, to march across the street and bang on her door until my knuckles bled. Instead, I sank onto the couch, my breath shaky, and stared at the ceiling as the fan clicked rhythmically above me. That's when I met Lila. She showed up one morning, a beat-up pickup truck rattling into my driveway, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun. She was a contractor I'd hired to fix the roof, But she was more than theta whirlwind of sarcasm and grit, with a laugh that sounded like it could wake the dead. "Heard you've got a Karen problem," she said, tossing a hammer into her toolbox with a metallic clang. I told her everything, the words spilling out like water from a cracked dam. She listened, leaning against her truck, her boots scuffed with dried mud. And when I finished, she let out a low whistle. "This lady's got issues," she said, her eyes glinting with something dangerous. "But don't worry. I've dealt with her type before." Lila wasn't just a contractor. She was a fighter, the kind of person who'd grown up scrapping for everything she had. Over the next few weeks, she didn't just fix my roof, she became my ally. We'd sit on my porch at night, the air thick with the scent of jasmine, and she'd tell me stories of her own battles, a landlord who tried to evict her for no reason, a boss who thought she couldn't handle a man's job. Her voice was steady, but her hands would clench when she talked, her knuckles white against the porch railing. "People like Karen," she said one night, the crickets chirping softly. "They think they can bully anyone into submission. But they're wrong." Lila dug into the HOA's rules, spending hours at the library, her laptop glowing in the dark as she pored over zoning laws and property records. She found something: Karen's own house wasn't as perfect as she claimed. Her backyard deck, the one she stood on to glare at my house, was built without a permit, violating the very regulations she was weaponizing against me. It was a small thing, but it was leverage. "We're not just fighting to keep your house," Lila said, her voice fierce, the wind rustling through the trees. "We're taking her down." The courtroom feels like it's closing in now, the air thick with anticipation. Karen's lawyer, a slick guy in a pinstripe suit, drones on about property values and aesthetic harmony. But I can see the judge's patience wearing thin. Lila sits beside me, her calloused hand brushing mine under the table, a quiet reminder that I'm not alone. When it's my turn, I stand, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I tell the judge everything: Karen's harassment, the letters, the way she's turned my dream of a fresh start into a nightmare. My voice cracks when I talk about the house, how it's more than just walls and a roof. It's my second chance, my proof that I can rebuild after everything fell apart. Then Lila takes the stand. She's calm, but there's fire in her eyes as she lays out the evidence: Karen's illegal deck, her history of frivolous lawsuits, the way she's used the HOA to terrorize neighbors for years. The room goes quiet, the only sound the faint scratch of the judge's pen. Karen's face is pale now, her lips trembling as she realizes the tide is turning. Lila's voice rises, sharp and clear, like a bell cutting through fog. "This isn't about a view," she says. "It's about power. Karen Miller thinks she can control everyone around her. But she's wrong. Ethan's house isn't the problem. She is." The judge calls a recess, and I step outside, the cool air hitting my face like a splash of water. Lila follows, her boots crunching on the gravel. "You okay?" she asks, her voice soft now, almost tender. I nod, but my chest feels tight, like I'm holding my breath for the verdict. The sky is gray, heavy with the promise of rain, and I can still hear Karen's voice in my head, accusing, demanding. But for the first time, I feel something else: hope. When the verdict comes, it's like the world snaps back into focus. The judge rules in my favor. Karen's lawsuit is dismissed, and she's ordered to pay my legal fees and remove her illegal deck within 60 days. The courtroom erupts in murmurs, but all I hear is the blood rushing in my ears, the weight lifting off my shoulders. Karen storms out, her heels clicking furiously, but I catch the look on her face: defeat, raw and unfiltered. For once, she's not in control. That night, Lila and I sit on my porch, the air cool and damp from the rain that finally came. The street is quiet, the lights from Willow Grove glowing softly in the distance. "You did it," she says, her voice warm, a bottle of beer dangling between her fingers. I shake my head. "We did it." She smiles, and for a moment, the world feels right, complete, like the last piece of a puzzle clicking into place. Karen's deck comes down a week later, the sound of hammers and saws echoing through the neighborhood. I watch from my window, the scent of fresh paint still lingering in my house. And I feel something I haven't felt in years, peace. This house, this life fight's mine. And no one, not even Karen, can take that away. Sometimes, justice isn't just a verdict. It's the sound of a bully's empire crumbling, one nail at a time.